Join us as we delve into some of the hot topics that both unite and divide us. We won't always agree, but let's commit to having those difficult conversations and open up some thought-provoking dialogue so that together we can start the process of getting back together. Listen, we've thought about it. We've even thought about it. Now let's talk about it with yours truly, James Kirklin, on the Intellectual Stew. All right, what's up? What it do? Time for another episode of the Intellectual Stew with yours truly, James Kirklin. I'm excited to be here once, as we say in church, once more and again. A few of his humble servants and bowed in humble submission, not for outside, not for shape, form, or fashion, or for an outside show for an unfriendly world, something like that. But anyway, I'm here, and we are doing something different tonight. Y'all know my book is released. I gotta be honest. This is the book. I got it. There it is. It's here. But I'm gonna be a little delayed on sending those out, those that have ordered those, because I'm gonna have to order some more. I made a mistake. I uploaded the wrong file so the books are not as presentable as I would like them to be. So I'm fixing that error, and then the books will be released to you all. So I'm going. It was an expensive. Ignorance was expensive in this case, but you're not going to suffer for that, and neither will my brand suffer for that. So I'm going to show you once again what that book looks like. In fact, let me go ahead and do this in the beginning. Before I bring my guest co-host or guest host, I guess, because he's interviewing me tonight. Let me show y'all this in the beginning. And he's listening now. Listen, I need you to give me a signal a couple times tonight, because we're going to have a couple of commercials, okay? But this is the book, y'all. I want y'all to see it. Don't order it through here now. Give me another week or so to get everything situated. But check this out. Here's the book, and then we're going to get into this interview, okay? Here we go. In the blink of an eye, everything can change. 20 years of marriage, 3 beautiful children, a home filled with memories. Gone. James Kirklin II was left with nothing but the silence of his own thoughts and a couch that became his prison. But in the depths of despair, subtle reminders of purpose began to pierce through the darkness. God had not forgotten him. In every small sign, in every whisper, in the stillness, James began to rediscover who he was and why he was still here. Stuck on the Couch is not just a story of loss, but a journey of resilience, faith, and the courage to embrace a new normal. Available now wherever books are sold. All right, so that's I've just released that. Like I said, if you want to order it, do me a favor, pre-order it. The link is on my page. Go ahead and order it. You'll help me out, and I'll get that out to you in the next week or so. But that's the trailer. I'm gonna play it a couple of times tonight, but that's my story, and I wrote it. I wrote my story, right? And so tonight I'm gonna have Zontarius Ricks. I put a thing out a couple of months ago and asked who wanted to interview me, and if there's anybody else who's ready to want to come ask questions, feel free. You know, I'm open for that, right? But I got what's up, Keisha? Kiki, my cousin. So I'm going to bring Zontarius in, and when he comes in, he's in charge. All right. So he can introduce himself, tell you who he is, and I'm going to switch roles. All right. He's going to be the interviewer, and I'm going to be the interviewed. And I'm going to put in a minute, I'm going to put let me open the phone. I'm going to put the phone number up, because if some of you all want to ask me some questions, feel free to do so. My mom read it. And when my mom read it, she said, you got to be prepared. Some people might not like you after this book. I said, well, anybody who sticks, because I could mean in my this is metaphor. If I metaphorically commit suicide or put all my stuff on the line, who sticks a knife in a dead body, right? I'm already dead. I mean, I've already had it. So you can't get me with what I already said. So if you tell me, asked me if I did it, I'll stand on 10 toes down. I did it, but thank God it's covered and it's under the blood, right? So we're gonna get Zontarius in here. I'm gonna put the phone number up in a few minutes, and then we're gonna go from there. Let me bring Z in, and Z is in charge. He's gonna handle it. And anybody in the chat, if you want to ask a question, feel free to do so as the night goes on. But Zontarius has read the book, and he wants to highlight some portions that he think will interest other potential readers. So I'm gonna bring him in now. Come on, Zontarius.
Hey, greetings to everybody out there. He gave me an introduction. My name is Zontarius. We did the first interview. We laid some groundwork. You can go back and watch the first interview. Some of the things that we touched on the first night, we may delve into a little bit tonight. But in our conversation earlier today, we had an opportunity to examine the significance of this book and who exactly the target audience is for this book. And I was sharing with James that one of the things that I've noticed, I believe that men who have gone through this situation before really will be able to relate to this book. A lot of times as men, we experience things that we may not have an opportunity to express, or sometimes we feel things that we just don't know how to express. So one of the things I always say is one of the major staples of a true artist or an author is that they become a voice for the voiceless. So this book, of course, it has a lot of spiritual undertones because it speaks about his calling. It also speaks about the difficulties that he had to wrestle with, being called so young to ministry, also being married, the pressures of marriage within the confinement of the church and how people view you. So a lot of this book is also ministry. It speaks to more than your intellect, but definitely it speaks to God's people and how we approach life in general. So tonight we're gonna talk to James. We're gonna pull back the curtain and delve into some very, very key things in this book that I believe we all will find beneficial. And so when you do get your hands on the book, you will have an opportunity to feel the full wave of emotions. As someone who read the book, I've experienced every level of emotion reading this book. And if you've been following James on this page, you will learn things about him. You're probably going to appreciate him even more after you read this book. So I actually had the opposite perspective of what his mom has. She said that a lot of people probably not going to like him after they read this book, right? But I believe anyone who isn't sitting on some, imaginary island of self-righteousness will be looking at him through lenses of appreciation, that he would actually share these intimate thoughts, intimate moments. For me, one of the things that I always find interesting, even when I'm reading scripture, is they recorded their own mistakes. This is how you know it's authentic. Most people only talk about their triumphs. They don't talk about their failures. They don't talk about their dark times. But this book takes you through a wide range of all of those things. James Rory, I can't see you.
Hey, I was gonna give you that build up. So let's go. I'm ready now.
Okay.
You're in charge. So hey, so I gave you that build up. I was waiting on you to call me back in. Let's go.
Yeah, I'm ready for you. I'm ready.
Right, let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay. So we had an opportunity last time we met to talk about some things that you experienced, the dynamics of marriage and ministry, balancing that out, your desire to actually do ministry above all else. And so we scratched the surface on the obstacles that you faced in your marriage, but we didn't really get all the way into it. So tonight I wanted to ask you about I wanted to ask you about what led you. There's a particular part in this book where you talk about your struggle with alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to ask you, what do you think was like the root cause of that part of your experience?
I wrote that. I said I struggled. Okay, I guess say I'm so transparent. I forgot what I wrote. No, I'm joking. I mean, when
on page 53, on page 53, in fact, on page 53, you described yourself on alcohol
as a functioning alcoholic. Yes, okay, I guess.
As these are your words: mean, arrogant, and stupid.
On page 53. Good Lord, yes, I got to read my book again. Okay. No, honestly, man. Like, I mean, we're dichotomy, man. We're dichotomy, yes. Right? We don't know. Anybody who doesn't know what dichotomy means, we're flesh and we're spirit, right? And the more you feed your flesh prevails. The more you satisfy your spirit prevails, right? So, and there were times, in that balance, in that life that I lived, sometimes now when I talk about struggle, I wasn't I don't think I was maybe I was, now they're looking, it's easy to look at things with different lenses in the past, right? But, the Bible also talks about lending yourself to familiar spirits. And so if you loan yourself to a spirit, then sometimes you subject yourself to that spirit. And then you start to do some of the things that you probably would not have ordinarily done because you become a different person when you're inebriated. What I was running from, what I was trying to be. I just know if I did drink, I became a different person. I don't know. I believe I became a totally different person. I was comfortable in environments that preachers weren't supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? I would go places that you don't try to get me to say where I was going, but I went places that the places I used to go, thank God I don't go no more. But I would go places and I would go those places with the assumption that church folk won't be there. And if I went there, then I would hide in the corner, and then in order to become comfortable in that environment, I had to lend myself to another spirit,
That's the part. In order for you to even be there, you had to energize the flesh.
Yeah.
Because
no doubt.
Your spirit wouldn't allow you to be there unless you toned it down. So last week you talked about, whichever one you feed is going to have more control. Yeah. And so, when I read those words, I wrote those words down. I said, wow, this is pretty deep. Because a lot of times, who does the preacher talk to? He's the one that's supposed to have all the answers.
Yeah. And this is the thing, man, not to cut you off because you're in charge. I get it. But this is the thing. This is the thing, right? Life, our goal is to be full. The word integrity means the state of being whole. We want to be whole. And when we're not whole, that means there's a deficiency. That means there's a void. There's something missing. Augustine, I quote him often. Augustine said that God has made us, constructed us. He made us for himself, and that our hearts are restless until it finds its rest in him. Right. Mm-hmm. So that means life is like a 999 piece puzzle. Right. But you need 1,000 to be complete. Right. So you got 999 and there's one piece missing. And so and in this life, I forgot Robert, what's his name? I forgot the guy who wrote the book, but he talks about the search for significance, right? So we go through this whole life on this search for significance, trying to find purpose or find, something that completes us, and in those moments, we try different things to fill those voids. You know what I'm saying? And for a season, for me, it was probably alcohol, and it was, it was the stressors of life, and it wasn't marriage that was the stressor. It was working in the car business, not wanting to be in the car business. I would have preferred to be pastoring somebody's church, or been on somebody's staff or something along those lines.
You still wasn't fulfilled, even though you were making money and you were engaging with clients. I was making that business.
Man, I was making six figures praying that a $40,000 a year church would come rescue me. I was making six figures. I went to an interview at a church one time, and I promised at that time I was making a minimum of $2,000 a week. And this church wrote me a check for $50. You know what I'm saying? Then I was candidating for the church, And the church said, well, if you get the church, we'll give you $400 a week. I said, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but my suit I have on is custom made. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I mean, I have more than four. I said, but I'm willing to settle because I understand this ministry. I was willing to take $500 a week plus, you know, a rent, you know, or something like that, you know, because I'm the type person, man, that has to be attached. I can't be with a woman if she don't need me. Yeah, man, and I know that sounds crazy because I feel like I'm necessary. I feel like I have to, huh?
It doesn't sound.
You said, yeah, because I have to feel.
If a man doesn't feel needed, he's going to go somewhere where he is.
Wow. Yeah. And that's the thing. I know, man, I've been like, God started calling me at 12 years old and I didn't know what it was. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So, you know, I heard his voice. So in life, I've always been attached to purpose, but that I couldn't quite find what the purpose was. You know what I'm saying? It's like a struggle with, you know, you got a sentence and you want the sentence to be complete, but there's a line with something that needs to fill that void to make the sentence complete. And I struggled, you know. So when I'm gonna give you an example. My most depressing moment would be after I preached on Sunday morning. That would be my most depressing moment. That was so depressing for me because for a moment I was at my best, or I felt like I was walking in my purpose. You know, and we didn't have the internet back then. We couldn't just get on Facebook and open up a scripture and all that kind of stuff and get an audience, you know, and I'm not a street preacher, you know, but when you read the story of John and the inner circle, right? He took him on the Mount of Transfiguration. And while they were up there, Zontarius, you know, they had a mountaintop moment, right? But as soon as they came down from the mountain, there was chaos. There was chaos. And so when I would be on that mountaintop moment of preaching, and I'm not the pastor of the church. You understand what I'm saying? Absolutely. So when would I get that other opportunity again? When would I feel that moment again? When would I feel like I was at my best again? You know what I'm saying? So those were tough moments. And then I think sometimes when it came to the point of feeling a void, you know, that's where I was stuck at. And you know, and that was long before the divorce came. You know, that was long. Yeah.
So you were functioning within your marriage, but with a void. Yeah. So then when the scripture says the two become one, then that should be the wholeness, but there was still a void there. And you was functioning, still trying to hold everything together. You know, at work, you're the charismatic salesman. At home, you're the father, the provider, and you're trying to function and operate, but then there's still this void.
Yeah, because I mean we're men, you know, and men love from different places. You know, women, y'all love out of adoration. I love that. You know, that's a good thing. It's a feeling. Y'all gotta have the chills in my. But sometimes men don't live out of love out of obligation. We love. We don't love out of adoration. We love out of obligation. My fulfillment came. Yeah, my fulfillment came by watching Trey be successful on the baseball field. My fulfillment came by watching Kennedy successful in the classroom. Every time I took Mackenzie to tumbling and she would learn how to do a back walkover or learn how to do a back handspring. You know, I'm posting daddy duties, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Right. So that's where my fulfillment came from. But what about me? You know what I'm saying? You know, and I think at some point I kind of lost myself in that moment, and it became, not unbeknownst to me, probably a spiraling moment, if you will. That was a beginning, the segue into a spiraling moment. Who knows? That's a good question, bro. I mean, that's a good question. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, you found yourself operating from a different place. Mm-hmm. And here is the $1 million question. Okay. Because I had to deal with it every day. And so anytime I'm in the presence or the company of women, and we talk about relationships, the question that they're going to ask me is, why do men cheat? Why is this thing with infidelity? What is it with you guys in this thing with infidelity? Now, men ain't the only one who cheat. We ain't going to go there. But In your marriage, there was infidelity.
Boy, you making me tell okay, go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, we're gonna because I can't talk about the brook until I find out how
I understand. Go ahead. I ain't mad. Go ahead.
So
go ahead. But let me can I put a caveat at first?
Go ahead.
Can I just put a caveat? The things I used to do, I'm just playing. I don't do no more. I'm just playing. I'm just okay. I've grown up a little bit since then. Let me just put that out there just real quick. Okay.
Now
go ahead. I'm good.
Last week I had an opportunity to talk about you were young when you got married. And I noticed a contrast in my lifetime.
It's 26 young? It's 26 young?
For marriage? Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah. You've been in ministry for a long time. If you're in youth ministry, that's from 18 to 25. That's the youth. Okay. You're 1 year removed from adolescence.
Gotcha.
So yeah, young. If you're between the ages of 18 and 25, that's adolescence.
Okay. If you say it, I believe it. I go with you.
Oh yeah, for sure.
One of my friends one time he said he had a child at 22. He said he waited a long time to have kids. I said 22. I said, wow. He said, yeah.
When did he start thinking about it?
Well, the thing was, that so many things, Zontarius, are relative, right? In the community he lived in, people were having babies at 16, 17, and 18. So yeah. to him that was. So for me to be 26, before I started I couldn't have kids, but before we started having kids, then he thought that was old. So I get it. I'm with it. But go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep interrupting you. He's in charge, y'all. I apologize.
But generally across the board, most people don't get married at 26. It's okay. Especially people who just if you're living a traditional lifestyle of I'm going to go to school, I'm going to graduate at 18, I'm going to go to college, right? I'm 22 and I graduate college. I'm going to get into my career or whatever. 26 is young.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I've noticed most men, one of the things I noticed is most men who got married in their 20s were men who grew up with their fathers in their home or a father figure. If it wasn't their biological, it was a man there. And their approach to relationships and marriage and family building happens a lot faster, which I believe is a good thing, first of all. But 26 years old, you're married, you're living in Atlanta, and life is coming at you 100 miles a minute. So we touched on the void that existed. We touched on, how you were trying to fill that void. There's a quote in the book where you said, "I live one way in the public, but a different life privately." Mm-hmm. And in society's perspective, what you were doing at 26, going out and the things you were doing privately was what the normal people were doing in that age group. The majority of people that's in their 20s is when they're partying, is when they're hanging out. The average person in their 20s is not married and building a family and excelling in business and making six figures. No. Even if you graduate with a master's degree, you don't start off making six figures unless you got to build your way up. So you were actually way ahead of the curve. It's not many 26-year-olds that was walking around making six figures. So
can I get you to pause right quick before you ask your question? Sometimes when in this conversation, I get revelations. Things start to come back to me, right? Mm-hmm. Now I was doing those things. I mean, I was successful, but one thing, I didn't really have to work to get it. It came easy. You know what I'm saying? Now, is it? Part of it was manipulate. Part of it was manipulation. I told old boy, even though I was never really officially a finance manager, I was told, I was just taught how to do everything. So, but when I went to the next dealership, I caught him stealing. And I said, hey, I did finance over there, yada, yada, yada. He's like, oh, you did? I really didn't, but I kind of told him I did. Hey, Donnie, I kind of told him I did, because I did have knowledge of it. And so then he put me in the box, and then next thing I'm in the box, then all month long, they trained me. And, but they really didn't train me. They trained me to fail. And I act like I didn't know, but at the end of the month, they had planned to blow me out. They had planned to fire me, and so they gave me all cash deals because they thought I wasn't selling warranty. I came out with. Hold on, let me finish. Yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I get it. But I'm saying it was still manipulation. I'm telling you how the story came. Because I all month long I didn't sell a warranty hardly. But then the last day I go in the finance office and it's all cash deals because they trying to blow me out. But I come out with a warranty with checks every time. What you want me to do with this $4,000 check? Because I knew what I was, but I wanted to do something else. You know what I'm saying? So the manager was like, well, no, we're not going to fire him. We're going to put him in a different position. It was grace. Don't get me wrong. It was grace. But was Jacob stole Esau's blessing? Jacob and Esau. Jacob stole Esau's blessing. It wasn't his birthright. His mama told him how to get it. But
when he went to Laban tried to set him up to fail, but he kept prospering.
Yeah, it's interesting. Go ahead, bro. Let me go ahead and ask your question you was about to ask. So I just thought that was interesting.
So you at 26, what we look at when you say, I live one way publicly, another way privately, really was par for the course for a person in your age group. But then now you find yourself living beneath your calling. The prophet has taken off his mantle. I want to be normal.
I don't want to be.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
The prophet has taken off his mantle. I want to be normal. So now this causes a disruption to what God wanted to establish. And the enemy couldn't penetrate the force field. You had to voluntarily step outside. So
no doubt.
Now, I want to know, for you, when you're energized in the flesh and you're doing your thing, you got involved with another woman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to ask you the question, why?
I like that question. That's a good question. It wasn't because of what I wasn't getting at home. Let me just say that. Okay. I tell people that I think men, and I get pushback when I say this, Zontarius. But you can't tell, and usually the pushback comes from women, but you can't tell a man how a man feels. You can have your opinion based on your experiences, based on how you've been acculturated, based on your triggers, based on how you've been cheated on, based on your perception, everything, but it still doesn't shape anybody else's reality. My reality is, I think men cheat out of two categories. It's either out of greed or need, right? Greed means, your wife is trying her best to be the sweetest person that she can be, and she's trying to be submissive, and she does her thing, but you just greedy, selfish, whatever you want to call it. You're just greedy, you're going out, and that's a reckless behavior, whatever it is. But then there's also time where there's a need. There's a time where sometimes she might be going through a medical problem, you know what I'm saying, and she's unable to certain things another way or whatnot, so that's, and I've been in probably in my life in both of those categories. You know what I'm saying? Does it justify what happened? No. Does anybody deserve to be cheated on? No. Would I encourage any other man? We make up these excuses and we say, no man was created to be with one woman. It's all boils down to discipline. That's what it all boils down to, is discipline. And then your love for whoever you're with. Right. But, so I did it, and it wasn't because I had to. It wasn't because she wasn't doing anything for me. It was greed, and then a lot of times for that to happen, I would have had to lend myself to the spirit that we talked about earlier, right? I used to, how you're young and you see a car coming down the street, you dart out across the street, because you're so fast, you can run across the front of the street in front of that car, and you make it. If you make it to the other side, you made it, right? Yeah. But if you get hit, you probably gonna be messed up. I got hit.
Yeah, you got to suffer the
consequences.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I got hit, and that was, and I deserved everything I went through. You saw I wrote in the book. I said, hell, I would have left me too.
Yeah,
I said that. I said I would have left me too. Was I the same man at the end that I was at the beginning? Nah. You know what I'm saying? I had grown up. I grew up in the marriage. But sometimes growing up produces growing pains. And if you can't manage the pain, then what do? I talk about this often. You either rehabilitate or you amputate. And if you don't have a foundation or a little bit left to make you want to amputate it, some things need a resurrection, some things need resuscitation. But resuscitation requires that there's some life left in it. And if there's no life, then amputation is probably going to be next. And that's where I was, and that's where I am.
And so, with the complexities that come with being married, it's one thing when it's just you and your lady, and you guys get to experience each other and have fun with each other. There's a whole nother layer that enters into the relationship when the child is here now.
Yeah.
And so now the dynamics of your relationship changes. And so here we are where there's more presented. You said women love out of adoration. Men oftentimes love out of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes you get caught up so much on the obligation that, you kind of operating on autopilot. There was a part in the book where you said that you and your wife were talking, but you weren't communicating. It's like you created your own language. And
vice versa, we were communicating but wasn't talking. That's a little
communicating but wasn't talking.
Yeah.
And we'll get back to that. We'll pick up off of that right there, that part, because that's a very part. A lot of people in a relationship right now may be going through that, and they may be able to identify, you know what, is that going on with me and my wife right now? And we can see how you can remedy that. But I'm gonna hand it over to you.
In the blink of an eye, everything can change. 20 years of marriage, 3 beautiful children, a home filled with memories, gone. James Kirklin II was left with nothing but the silence of his own thoughts and a couch that became his prison. But in the depths of despair, subtle reminders of purpose began to pierce through the darkness. God had not forgotten him. In every small sign, in every whisper, in the stillness, James began to rediscover who he was and why he was still here. Stuck on the Couch is not just a story of loss, but a journey of resilience, faith, and the courage to embrace a new normal. Available now wherever books are sold. All right, we're back.
So it's some very, very, for those of you that are listening, this book has treasures. And oftentimes, I believe we have the incorrect perception of things in life, where if a person have not been successfully married for 30 odd consecutive years, I don't want you giving me no advice. You ain't qualified to talk to me. I disagree with that 100%. I believe the person who has stumbled, bumbled, fumbled, and made mistakes can give me advice because they can prevent me from doing what they did. And in the book, you share some valuable advice for young couples, and you tell them to never stop talking, even in disagreement, still talk. Because you lived this thing. You had an opportunity to live this thing. And we know that hindsight is 20/20 when you look back on it. So you guys started operating in your book. You were saying how you guys started operating. You was like at a certain point, you developed your own language, but you weren't really communicating. Tell me what you mean by that.
Man, at a certain point, we started vicariously living through our children. We lived through everything was their schedules. Everything was their baseball. Baseball was every weekend from the time he was 9 years old till he was 23 years old. Softball filled in some of those voids. There were times she was at the field and I at one field and I was at the other field. And then the baby was doing cheerleading, but she was the cheerleader for her brother and sister as well. You know what I'm saying? So there were times we didn't talk all day, but we would meet. We just knew each other's schedules. We knew what we had to do, and we weren't arguing We wasn't fighting. We weren't in disagreements. We just weren't talking, sleeping in the same bed, going to church together. Well, went to church, did family reunions together, family functions together, did all those things, but we weren't talking. And when you don't talk, then you make yourself susceptible to thoughts, and some, Eve, Adam just was at work, and Eve, all of a sudden Eve started having a conversation with somebody else, and even if you're not having a conversation with anyone else, you might be having it with yourself. And if you're having it with yourself, who knows what you're telling yourself? Because if you tell yourself something, you're gonna believe whatever you tell yourself, right? And that's one of the things I said. If I were talking to young men, and I was telling them, giving them advice for leading their household, one of the things I would tell them is to make sure that they follow Habakkuk's rule, right? To make sure that they adequately and accurately cast vision in their home, right? And make her a part of the plot process, right? Because she might have some gifts and some talents to help enhance your vision. Really, if y'all, if the two become one, right, then that means she should have something that you're missing, that's necessary to help you complete and ultimately achieve your vision, right? But if you don't share that, now this is the thing with me.
Yeah,
the biggest thing with me was that in my situation, you call me the prophet. I get it. You call me the prophet. I get it. But sometimes in this role, you see the end while you're at the beginning, but you don't always see the process.
Yes.
So you talk about,
please elaborate.
Yeah. You talk about things as though they're already done, even though they're not done, because I don't see process. I don't see function. I just see fruit. You know what I'm saying? I see the seed and I see the fruit. I don't see the process.
What the end result is going to be. You don't see all the things you got to go through to get to that.
Yeah. And so I would tell her what the end looked like, but she's like, okay, we'll do it. And I'm like, I don't know how, but I didn't even know how to tell her I don't know how. You know what I'm saying? I would hope, if I were more mature and I would have been able to express that better, I probably would have told her, hey, listen, I don't know how to do. I need you to help me do this. You know what I'm saying? Because at that point, then she wouldn't feel like she's just working for nothing. But we had 3 kids, and those 2 of them were small. It was a lot going on in that moment. So I get it. And we were young, as you said, right? We were young, but with a prophetic eye, sometimes a prophetic eye is almost like a pathetic eye, to everybody else, because they don't see it the way we see it, right? But if you're not talking, if you're not sharing that spirit, if you're not casting that vision, if you're not communicating properly, then you leave yourself to the wiles of the enemy. You leave yourself open and susceptible to any other thought, vain thoughts, if you will, that can lead us astray and have us go in the wrong direction, man. So yeah, that was a mistake. So yeah, we and listen, let me say this as well. Just put that you can function in dysfunction.
Absolutely.
You can make dysfunctional look very functional because you've operated in your new normal so long that you think your new normal is normal. But no, that ain't normal. That's dysfunction. And it seemed like you're fruitful in dysfunction. I didn't understand that, bro, until one day we had a house right out in Hiram. We had a house, beautiful house, right? And all of a sudden, one day in my yard, I'm looking at the yard, and the yard is functional. It's growing. I'm cutting the grass, all this stuff. But right in the middle of the grass, I saw flowers, but I knew I didn't plant flowers. It looked functional. It looked like it was supposed to be there because they were purple. They were right there in the middle. But at the root of it all, that was a weed. That was not a flower. Oh, that's deep. That wasn't a flower. What that I saw. That was a weed growing. I didn't plant it, but it was there, right? Because it looked. But if I would have thought it was normal, I would have let it keep growing.
You just left it there, yeah.
Yeah, but then it might have messed up the rest of my yard, right?
And the whole while you're not even aware.
And so we do that so many times when we operate in dysfunction, and we think that we do because we start teaching other folk that dysfunctional stuff. Now right now we got a whole generation that thinks marriage is a bad thing. So we got a whole because we advertise the bad. We don't advertise the good. All we talk about the negative. All I talked about the first 2 years of my podcast was how all the good things. I had people tell me, "Well, if everything was so good, why y'all get divorced?" Because everything wasn't bad. You understand what I'm saying? But we operate in dysfunction so long that dysfunction puts on a mask and makes everyone else think that I'm functioning. But in truth, guess what? I'm suffering in plain sight. I'm smiling because you see me at my best, but you don't realize that I got to go home and deal with what I got to deal with when I get to the house.
When you talk about putting on that mask,
yeah,
because really, in essence, that's what life teaches us.
Man.
Put on your mask and get out there and perform, because we live in a performance-based society.
Yes, sir.
What's a handicap for us is that as believers, we should be able to live a more transparent life instead of saying, well, I'm Reverend so-and-so, so let me put on my mask.
Yeah.
Sometimes we got to realize that we are creating a culture for people to masquerade, because
we've created past tense, not present tense.
Created a culture for people to masquerade. And then by the time you figure out, oh man, this was going on, it's too late. You were married for 20 years. 20 years. And like you said, you spent 2 years talking about how many good things was taking place. But for a long time, you had to wear this mask. Oh, and married couples go through it all the time. If you are a married couple or you have been in a long-term relationship, and I know that if you're living with your significant other, there has been times where you two may be at odds about something and nobody else knows it. It is the 4th of July. The family's coming over. We finna function today. You talking to everybody like everything good. Y'all just had a whole night. I'm not talking to each other. You stay on your side of the bed. I'm going to stay on my side of the bed. Sometimes even I'm sleeping on the couch. I don't even want to lay in the same room with you. But the next day, when the family come over, I'm on the grill cooking like everything, all good, smiling and talking. But deep inside, it's not there. So this performative behavior that we've grown accustomed to doing, you would think that it wouldn't be so prevalent in the spiritual circles, but in the spiritual is even more prevalent.
Absolutely.
Because we all have to put on this air of, I got it figured out. And so you found yourself in this place where you guys aren't talking. The relationship is slowly fading away. It's eroding. And then one day she comes in and she dropped those fateful words on you. I found a realm.
Yeah.
Tell me about that. Tell me about that moment. In the book, you've done such a wonderful job of the retrospect of this is what should have happened versus what actually happened. And so I'm going to tell you something. As a man, I find this common so much among us as men. We usually do not express verbally what we want to in the moment. Our retrospect is much better than our right then in the moment.
What I should have done. Yeah, I get that.
Yes.